I told you I've had a lot of rum today, Chard. A lot of rum.
Are you
Okay.
you
It's
okay,
been a
buddy?
thing. Yeah. There we are. I see us on YouTube, so I know that this works and going forward. That's great.
I do not
Oh,
see us on Twitch, so we
good.
are aces.
Exactly what we want. Okay. So I don't need to worry about chat because we are pre-recording this one. Well, it's a bit different. So those who are watching the YouTube video, we are slightly going a little bit earlier to release at our usual time while we do something else for end of the year at Press B. So
We're gonna give you
that's
this trash before we
yeah.
do the good shit that we're
Yeah.
gonna withhold from you for a week or two.
You're getting our B team. I'm sorry. I'm very, very sorry.
Wow. Press B to team.
Yeah. This is the Circus Charlie of Press B. You get Joust later. Yeah, do that before the intro. Thank you. That's what we do now. That's the professional way of doing it.
I thought you were running the intro thread. I just spelled all over the place.
What's it? Should you stay or should you go? That's the song lyric, right? Path of Exile 2 early access. Should you buy it or should you wait? And is it better than Diablo? Today on
Don't quote Joe Strummer over the bit.
I love Joe Strummer. He did my favorite song. It's just a shame that Nirvana, Johnny Cash, Nirvana, all.
You
all
don't
stole
even
the
know
lyrics of
who
the
Joe
song.
Strummer is. Don't give me anything.
No, I know the song though. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Press B to Cancel, your favorite retro podcast. And today we are talking about a fantastic retro game called Path of Exile 2, which came out like last week. It's a fantastic game so far. It's retro-ish.
It was in 23.
Yeah.
24.
24, yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely inspired by some retro games. Diablo 2 is retro, I think, right? Actually, is Diablo 2 retro?
Yeah, I believe Diablo 2 would be considered retro at this time.
Well, I'm not just old, so is my co-host, Chard. How you doing this week?
Very old. I'm tired. Yeah. But work is done. We're done for the week. We're heading into Christmas break, so we are rocket shipping right into there.
Dude, I can't wait. I got 2 days left, 2 days of hell, and then I'm off for a week. So I can't wait. But you know what makes things going a little bit easier, especially this weekend, is a little game called Path of Exile. This is what a wild game. So Path of Exile is essentially a Diablo-like. It is the first game came out in 2013 from Grinding Gear Games. It's very much, yes, it's 10 years ago, literally.
Ago?
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
I know.
Jesus. So that was more recent.
And when this studio made this game, it really felt like they were inspired by Diablo 2 specifically. At a time when I think people were looking to what Diablo 3 was going to be with the, I'm not going to say cartoonier graphics, but Diablo 3 was definitely a brighter color palette, a brighter in tone. Still a good game, but it was definitely a different style than Diablo 2. So Path of Exile kind of went the opposite approach. They kind of stuck to the style of what Diablo 2 was. But then they also, looked at the idea of Diablo 2's socket system and gems and all that. And they said, you know what? Let's take a little bit of influence from Final Fantasy VII and the materia system and make that a game. So it's also a free-to-play game originally as well. And it's had a pretty successful career. I think I was looking at SteamDB, and I want to say they peaked at 100K players, I think, earlier this year. So respectable for a Steam game. And it's not natively on Steam. It first came out on its own standalone. So it's definitely had its fan over the last 10 years. I know personally I would, pop on. I played once in beta, and then every year I would usually pop in for a season or a league or two, and then I pop out. And that's what I like about these free-to-play games. You can pop in, see what's new, and then leave and come back. And over the last 10 years, they've definitely expanded it. They've added new skills, new chapters, new everything. Like it's been an evolving game, and I always was impressed that it was free. So the other year they announced a sequel, Path of Exile 2. And I think originally their plan was to have it combined with PoE 1 and kind of just continue the story. But as the teams kind of diverged and separated, the designer PoE 2 wanted to kind of take a different direction. We'll get to, the differences maybe a little bit later. But Chard, did you ever play Path of Exile 1 at all?
No, I didn't. I'll tell you what, I played a lot of Diablo 2 back in 2000 when it was out. I have a lifetime childhood friend that I've had literally since birth, because our families were friends before we were born. So we literally grew up together. We're still very good friends. We still chat every now and then. He is an avid Diablo 2. Every game that he plays has to be Diablo 2 or a Diablo 2 facsimile. Like
Okay.
I call him, he said when Diablo 2 Resurrection came out, it was the greatest day of his life because he's like, he never went beyond Diablo 2. He played 3
Really?
a little bit. I watched him
Okay.
play it and I liked like they had like the ragdoll physics that they added into 3 and they made everything kind of a little bit more personalized, I guess you could say, with the zoom in and zoom out camera. Excuse me. But yeah, we played that till we beat that horse into the ground and I was so burnt out on ARPGs, I guess it'd be considered an ARPG for this,
Yes.
that I didn't touch many. I played like Titan's Quest after that, which was pretty good too, but it just didn't have the same kick. And everything else that I tried, I was like, it's either too much like Diablo 2 and it brings me back to being bored of
Okay.
grinding and doing the desert. I hate the desert. It's like my least
Really?
favorite stage like ever made.
Okay.
Um, as I was there a long time. We died so many times. It took me years to get past that and get into the swamps and then into hell and all that other stuff. So it just felt like we were never moving forward in that game. So I kind of swore off a lot of ARPGs, and I know Von Beardley and Sinistress, of course, Sinistar and Sinistress are huge Diablo 2 fans. And they talk about, Grim Dawn and other versions, and I just never
Yeah.
interested in it. And even when PoE came out, I was kind of like, whatever. But Path of Exile 2, we'll dive into that because that
Yeah.
has unlocked a thing that I did not think possible
Yeah.
in
The
quite a
thing with
while.
being PoE one that kind of always got me bored, and to a certain degree, Diablo 3 and Diablo 4 got to this way as well, where before I got to the end game, the end of the story of the campaign, I felt like I only really needed one skill to kind of get by, right?
That's
And
what you're saying,
PoE
yeah.
1 was especially bad for this because, so for those who haven't played it, unlike a skill tree in Diablo 2, 3, and even 4, in PoE 1, it was all skill gems. And you would socket these gems into items you had, and that would give you the skill. And in PoE 1, there was a very much materia system. Items would have linked sockets, and you could combine gems in various ways to customize your skill. But because you could have 6 sockets, I think it was, on one item, you could really stack one skill to be the uber skill and just one button your way through a lot of that game. Especially when I
Mhm.
dived into it again, I think it was last year for a bit. I liked the game quite a bit, but when I'm only hitting one button, it kind of gets old quick. PoE
Right.
2, completely different beast. The speed is slower by far, is much more difficult. The pacing is definitely better. And the skill gem system from PoE 1 completely scrapped. It's completely different. Now in PoE
Mm.
2, you still get skill gems, but instead of slotting them in on items, you slot them to your character. You can carry, I think it's 9 skills on your character. And there's
Okay.
limits on to what skills you can combine together and a certain number on each skill. So you can still use, support gems to add fire damage to, a melee attack,
Yeah. Mhm.
or make your area of effect of your shout skills bigger, or make a skill cause bleed for whatever reason. Like there's still that really customizable skill system, but it's a
Yeah.
lot more, I think, easier to balance. So this is probably your
Okay.
first time trying to seeing that kind of system. What did you think about PoE 2's skill systems?
The skill set, are we talking about the tree or the
No, no,
the
just
sphere
the skill
grid?
gems. This no,
Just the
we'll,
skill
we'll
gems?
we'll get to the sphere
Yeah, yeah,
grid.
okay, okay. I just want to make sure about talking about the wrong thing. The skill gems are cool. I
Yeah,
know you can socket them to a skill, right? I've been playing as a merc, more a mercenary, more like religiously, I guess you could say. I got a witch character that I've messed around with, but most of my stuff is on the mercenary, and they've got some really cool skill gem additions where you can select out of the 3 tier, like it's got the
yeah,
tiers, and then there's 3 things to select from, and then you can grab all 3 of them or whatever. I've got shots that pin characters down, so like a chain holds them into place or something, and it poisons them at the same time, so they're
nice.
taking damage while they're being pinned. I mean, there's some really neat stuff. I was really impressed at how you utilize the skill gems, the uncut skill gems, and you can scribe them and then put them in. The only thing that I have a beef with, and I kind of hope that they fix this, is if you already have an uncut skill gem and you turn it into a skill you already have, you can't use it again. So
Yeah,
I accidentally did that because I wasn't paying attention, and I did it twice, thinking that I could stack that with something else, and it's specific to that slot. So you could probably maybe double stack more than one when you open up more slots under that skill tree or skill, but maybe not. I don't know. I doubt it because every time you put it up there, it says, already own this skill. I'm like, then
Yeah.
why did you let me pick it again? So,
Yeah.
you know,
The only hope is that you can put your account stash and another character and alt, I guess, could use it. I've been doing that. So
I didn't think of that.
I
Didn't
started a
think of
second
that.
character last week. I started a witch, although I'm designer as a warrior. And I'm like, you know what? I really could use a level 5 skill right about now, but I don't have the drops yet because I'm not high enough level. But then I just went
Mhm.
to my stash and I grabbed one from my other character. So for that, it makes sense. And I've been doing a little bit of that. But you're right. It does suck that it just doesn't warn you like, hey, you already have
Right.
this one. You can only equip the same support gem once on your character,
Mhm.
which is definitely, again, I think a balancing move, which is, I'm not opposed to it. I think making the game easier to balance is smart.
Mhm.
Compared to PoE1, felt like a off the rails very quickly. This game feels a little bit more restrictive in the power level, which is fine. It does encourage you to use more skills, not just because the support gem system, so you can't stack all in one, but there's more
Mhm.
of a focus on combos, right? Like some skills will give you ice damage or cold damage, but maybe not very much freezing. Whereas another skill will give you less cold damage, but a lot of freezing. Or another skill will break an enemy that's frozen. There's a lot of
Right.
overlap in the different types of skills and statuses effects, and you get a lot of great skill combos. The one I'm using right now is playing last night. I'm playing a witch, although there's no restrictions, so I'm playing a witch character. But I decided to pick
A
up
witch
the
a
mace,
witch by name, but not
witch
by
by name.
skill.
Yeah, it's witch Jake. If you ever see me online, so I'm using
I did
I
see you
decided to use
yesterday.
a mace instead, right? Which is the warrior's weapon. And I'm using the
Right.
mace, and the mace has a lot of fire skills. So there's lots of synergy with not the witch skills, but the elementalist skills, which has fire spells. So I'm using a lot of fire damage from different classes, and that's a lot of fun. But
Mhm.
I really like how there's a one called Ashes or Herald of Ash, and basically I think it explodes enemies when you overkill them. So when you do a
Mm.
big huge move with a mace, which is big on damage, and you overkill them, they explode into fire. And then I have
Oh,
skills that
that's cool.
synergize to make the fire damage cause ignites, they catch on fire, deal more damage. It's a really good
That's
combo.
cool.
Yeah,
Alright.
it's really dope. Like, and when you and I played on Twitch the other week, I was using my ranger character, and it's all about the ice, right? And I loved it because a few guys were you guys were also using ice spells. So whenever somebody froze somebody, I have a skill that explodes frozen enemies into shrapnel and does more damage. So I love that. I didn't even have to
Right.
freeze people. I let you guys do it, and I was just exploding things, and we were kicking ass. But that
That was cool.
synergy is really dope, and it's really well done, and I love that combo system. It's it's the getting away from the one button problem is why I think I liked PoE 2 so much more than Diablo PoE 1, but also Diablo 3 and even 4.
Mhm.
Like I've been kind of on the fence with Diablo 4 since it came out. I really did like the new class and the expansion that just came out, but I still felt by the end of that campaign, I was down to one, maybe two skills. I didn't really feel like the need to use anything else. So who knows?
Mhm.
Maybe PoE 2 will have the same problem. I'm only just in Act 2 with both my characters. I haven't had time to go through what's there, but so far the pacing is a lot more deliberate and does remind me a lot of Diablo 2. Because like you, Chart, I played a ton of Diablo 2. I just finished high school, and all my friends were playing that. We each picked a different class, and it's a good time. Um,
Yep.
how did you feel about the combat then, the difficulty? Because it's definitely closer to Diablo 2. Did you
Oh.
find it too hard? I mean, you're a Souls guy,
N
right?
Yeah, yes. I I yes and no. Honestly, I thought for a minute that I was cheating, like, for a
Okay.
long time because you have the energy shield that you start with, and I guess I got a really good armor drop on the first main boss, and I felt pretty good tanking as a merc. I mean, it's a lot of run and gun for me, which is weird. It's not a character I typically play. I usually play some kind of warrior, but I think you and a couple other folk were like, go ranged, like start out
Yeah.
ranged, play ranged to try it out. Everything else is kind of broken right now with the melee stuff, but I guess they fixed a lot of it according to sources and stuff. But I like the ranged feel. And so, but there's a dodge roll that isn't in
Yeah.
anything else. And I'm playing like the game works seamlessly on a controller. It's mind-blowing how well that game works on a controller. It's very hesitant to try it on my Steam Deck with the controller. Holy crap, it is night and day difference. But I'm
Yeah.
also doing the QWERTY keys on PC when I play it on the PC and I use my mouse. Now, what I was used to Diablo was the click, right? You click, click, click,
Right.
click, click, click as you move your character around to attack. This I don't do that. I can aim with my mouse with the gun and use the keys to walk around like a normal, like almost like a first person, third person shooter.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it seems more seamless, but the mobs seem more mobby in this than a Diablo 2 that I remember.
There's so
There's
many.
like a ton more enemies on the screen at one time than I ever remember being in Diablo 2, and it's kind of fun getting like just bum rushed by a large group, and then you take them out with a spread shot weapon, and you hit them with more than one because Diablo was always felt like it was like one person at a time. You were
Yeah.
taking one thing out at a time, and as you pick through them, then you go through this one. You're taking out a shit ton of stuff in one sitting, and I really like that. My character's got so many spread shot attacks. I just picked up galvanized shot, which is an electrical blast, which is a shotgun blast of metallic shards that are electrified, and it hits things and it arcs throughout the entire group that you're hitting it with. So it's just electricity flying everywhere when you're shooting them.
That's wild.
It works great on like the crag crawlers or whatever. It's perfect for like mass squads like that. There's a lot of crowd control too, and the
Yeah.
dodge roll thing is really freaking neat to be able to roll out of danger. It's not like you get iframes like a Soulsborne kind of game, but it helps you put distance between you and a group of enemies that
Yeah.
literally mob you down in small areas, like the muddy cave, for instance. You just get
Yeah. Like
mobbed in that
the
area.
Diablo 3 Diablo 3 on PC didn't have the dodge button, but when they brought that game to consoles, they added it. And that's one of
Oh,
my
okay.
favorite parts of Diablo 3 on console because I played that campaign with my kids on the Switch, and it was great. And I was glad to see they brought dodge back in Diablo 4, but there they limit it. They have it on a cooldown. I think it's once, maybe twice, and then there's items that will give you a few more cooldowns. Like one of the reasons
Right.
why I like the new class in that was that there's a skill tree I think that increases the number of cooldowns you have of dodge or whatever it was. But there's a dodge
Okay.
focused build there. But normally it's like one or two. But in PoE 2, it's unlimited. Like obviously you can't dodge
Just
constantly.
rolling
Like
all day. Yeah.
yeah, it's not Witcher 3. You're not constantly moving around, but it's enough that you're using it a lot. And it almost feels
Yeah.
like MMO like in terms of dodging
Mhm.
the boss attacks, the area skills and all that. But the mobs are crazy. There's more than a few bosses where at times they pause and they take a step back and they just summon waves of enemies just constantly. The not like a light spoiler of one particular boss. He's up on a hill and there's a pack of mobs at the bottom of the hill and you have to make your way through there. And they actually constantly spawn if you hang around enough. But when you go up to fight him up there, you have to fight him in this small arena, and he periodically calls the mobs of things that come up after you. And if you get too close to the edge of the arena, there's mobs up top that are chucking spears at you. It's just they hit you from all sides. And if you don't have
There's
some
a
kind of
lot.
crowd control skill, yeah, you're in for a bad time. So that's where
Yeah.
you kind of have to use freeze. You have to use pin. You have to pick a
Mhm.
crowd control skill, and every class has one for sure. Like my witch,
Yeah.
I'm using basically it's a sphere, a ring of bones, and it does the
Mhm.
pin. But what's wild is
Okay.
that you can add a support gem so that mine when I use the ring of bone, it causes them to bleed, and if they're low on life, it executes them. It kills them instantly if they're under a certain threshold of health. So like
Oh,
I'm just
wow.
constantly fighting with the mace, and then every so often it's wheel a bone and they all just die. They get executed.
Right.
It feels
That's
really
cool.
snappy, really cool. Like when you mentioned your mercenary with the crossbow skill and galvanize, and it shoots a blast. There's skills that will add piercing, so it goes through
Yep.
enemies. There's one that will cause it to
Mhm.
scatter or chain, so it hits an enemy and it splits off and chains again. And it's
Yep.
balanced the way that once it chains or pierces, the damage goes down. But it's still cool to just fill a screen, fill the screen up with projectiles. It's a really
Yep.
interesting system.
It's
Yeah,
there's like the ricochet shot that bounces off of more than one character in a group. So you shoot one and it'll hit three other ones in the area. You have fire blast and ice blast, rapid ice shot. There's like a
yeah,
machine gun with ice in it. I just picked up a fire one that it almost takes a second to warm up, but your crossbow catches on fire and then it
yeah.
just shoots like rapid blast on fire at things, and then
That's
they
wild.
cause burn and they catch on fire. It's really really cool. Like I'm really
Yeah.
excited to try some of the melee characters and try some of the other stuff. And then we don't even have everything, right? There's like 2 or 3 more classes that are
More,
supposed to
no
come out.
more. So right now in early access, which I'm going to tell you right now, super polished for what's there. They have
Oh
6
yeah.
classes, and there'll be 6 more coming out by the end of next year when it hits
Oh,
full release.
6? I thought there was like 2 we were missing.
No,
6 is
six more
awesome.
classes,
Okay.
and each class
Nice.
is supposed to have 4 like ascendancy trees or ascended trees, basically specialized skill trees just for that class.
Like
Each
a
will have 4.
subclass in their class.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of. Right now, there's 2 for each of the
Yep.
6. So each will have 4 by the end of the release, and then 6 more classes. And then there's three chapters in the game for story, and then there's the middle 3 chapters that is being worked on right now. That's not in early access, but they have pretty much the completed end game in early access. And they
Right.
said they kind of pivoted during development. They were going to do the first 6 chapters and release it, but then they realized the majority of their players in PoE 1, and they figured it'd be the same in the sequel, is they're going to experience the first couple chapters, or they're hardcore enough that they're going to spend all their time in endgame. So they figured, why not for early access? We have it so we have endgame for our hardcore players, and we also have the opening for the people who are going to dabble and casually check the game out. And then when it comes to full release, they'll have the full game. So and like
Right.
this is a game, this is a live service game, and they've shown that with PoE 1 having updates for 10 years. And I'm telling you, the game in 2013 is a much different game now in terms of what's been added. They've added more chapters over the years, more skills. I think they added a special class, I think, as well. I can't remember the name of it. I want to say Cyan, but I could be wrong. But there's just definitely a lot of variety. And variety in that, like when I look at Diablo 4, the skills in Diablo 4 were neat, but they didn't feel like you can customize them at all, really. Not to the extent of PoE 2. Diablo 4, the customization came more from the items. In that game, you're collecting unique items and the abilities that come with it to kind of tweak your skills, but it's very drop dependent. If you can't find the drop that you need for your build, you're missing
Right.
out. Whereas PoE 2, it's gems, and you get the gems generically dropping, and you cut
Yeah.
it to whatever skill you want. And that's such a
Right.
big game changer for me. In fact, loot in this is probably a lot less than most people would expect. I know I was. I mean, what did you think of the loot compared to your experience with Diablo 2?
I mean, the whole point of playing Diablo 2 is to get the drops, right? Is to grind for
Right.
drops. That's all I remember is you do hundreds and hundreds of Diablo runs, like on Diablo himself, to get the good drops, and then you start over and you do it in nightmare mode, and you constantly go with friends and you just grind and grind until you get the good shit. And that's what got repetitive and boring to
Yeah.
me because it was like, okay, now I've got the ultimate weapon. I can one hit kill everything in the first 3 acts. This is why am I doing this again? Like what am I doing? With this, it just and it's still new. Let's be honest. It's going to
Yeah.
be the same beast. I get it. I understand that. But like even I've got a fairly rare crossbow, but the skills that I'm using are more exciting than the weapons that I'm using
Yeah.
it with, right? And having the not having the need to just one button click something, which again, that could change like the further in we get. But an initial look, excuse me, on initial look, it's all about the skills that you're getting in the skill
Yeah.
gems that you drop. And I'm switching out because my character switches ammunition. Like that's the skill change for it,
Right.
right? Like yours does the explosive thing or the cool backflip, and you're doing that whole deal. But mine is like situational to what kind of gun I'm using. Should I use this ammunition? Should I use this ammunition instead? And I change throughout. Like I have a quick hot button that changes from galvanizing to the frost one, and then back to like the standard shot that has the pain and the poison on it. And it works. It works so seamlessly well that like I'm more excited for finding more skills than I am for
Yeah.
actual weapon drops. Like when you see an uncut gem, you're like, yes, let's go with the uncut gem as opposed to, hey, cool, another crossbow. Like, or hey,
Yeah.
cool, some armor.
Like loot is definitely interesting. There, much like Diablo and PoE 1, there is magic, rare, and then the unique items, or I think they call them rare, or no, legendary, or they might call them unique. The
Yeah,
orange items. It's all color coded anyway in
right,
these
right.
games. But the orange tier of items do have a unique property to them, which is usually interesting. Maybe not as drastic as what Diablo 4 does, but again, the goal of the two games couldn't be more different. D4 was grinding for items. PoE 2 is more getting skill gems and kind of just going through the content. and collecting the currency. Like there's a crafting in this game that's I'm not going to try and explain it all because I'll sound like a crazy person. But there's orbs in PoE too. And the idea is the orbs do different things like adding modifiers, removing modifiers, adding sockets, changing things. And the idea with PoE 2 is to find the perfect plain normal item with better quality, upgrading the quality with blacksmith scraps, and then turning it to a magic item, then making it rare, and then kind of tweaking it as you go. And it's that rolling the dice to see if you get the mods you want. In fact, Diablo 4 just recently implemented a similar system with their tempering. That's what it feels like. But PoE 2 and PoE 1 had it first. So it's definitely an interesting take on the ARP genre. But I dig it. I think it's pretty great. Not all the items are in the game, too. That's the one thing. One of the reasons why I think I recommended pick a range character is of the 6 classes that are in there right now, there's only one melee class. It's, I want to say warrior, but it could be called something else. But there's only one.
Warrior.
Is it? But there's only one melee weapon. Oh, there's monk and melee. Monk and warrior. Monk uses quarterstaff generally, although you could pick whatever you want. And then warrior uses mace. They didn't add swords yet. Daggers, spears. There's a few things that I'm missing because it's still coming. That's where the 6 classes come into play because the other classes are more geared toward other items, right? But again, it's very customizable. You could do whatever you want. And in terms of doing whatever you want, one of the big things to make things customizable in this game, and it's almost notorious for it. I know PoE 1 was, and it's probably the number one reason why I think people bounce off this game, and that's the passive skill tree. I want you to explain your first impressions of that passive skill tree.
Oh my God. You sent me a TikTok of this thing and you're like, don't be scared, but, and then it showed me the guy explaining the passive skill tree and then panning it out. And it is basically the Final Fantasy X sphere grid on crack. It is enormous. Now, like you start in the middle and then whatever class you're playing in has, let's just say, northwest, east, south kind of setup, right? And then if you really dumb it down, you just kind of go true north, true west, true east, true south, which whatever character you're playing as, and it'll fulfill that specific build. But you can drift into other aspects. So, I'm a merc, so my merc is basically due south is my skill tree, my passive skill tree. But I can start going northeast and start picking up some warrior skills or pick up some ranger skills, like whichever, but they're all passive skills, right? So it's not like I don't get to get, a cool attack from it. I just get the perks that come with that skill in that thing. It's really hard for a novice like myself to really explain what it is, but it truly is. It's so that you can basically be anything and everything on this entire tree. Now it would take you years probably to fill this entire thing out because it is massive. And I'm pretty sure since we still have 6 classes we're missing, that thing is just going to get bigger than it already is. But it allows for a lot of customization between classes where you're not truly just I'm a ranger and that's it. I shoot bows and arrows. That's all I do. It will allow you to, like Jake said, he's playing a witch with a warrior build and using maces. Like I have a few monk skills on my merc for close range combat, not a ton, but it allows perks for if something gets too close to me, I can hit it with a quarterstaff, bounce out, and then start shooting it again. So it allows for a lot of really cool customization.
And what's great about that system too is you don't have to weapon swap. You basically the skill goes to with the weapon if you want to, and it will automatically switch the weapon and do the attack. So when I was doing my ranger, I was also using monk skills because monk skills are pretty rad. So I would use the leap backwards and shoot an arrow to freeze them, and then I would just hit the button for a monk skill that would leap me forward and smack him with my staff. And it seamlessly switches between the weapons depending on the skill you use. And it's if you want to get nitty gritty, you can do that. In fact, if you want to get nitty gritty, the passive skill web thing that they have, you can actually apply skills for one weapon and not the other and have 2 different paths on that passive skill tree. I don't know who has the patience for that. Like my mind was blown when I saw them advertise that during the early access trailers, but you could totally go there if you want. I will say that compared to PoE 1, in this one, it's a giant web like Chart explained. And there's like pockets of special passive abilities like more ice damage, more ignite duration, more aura range, all these great stuff. But to get there, it's connected by these, I'm going to call them highways, where they're longer distance between the nodes, and they give you
Right.
stats. They usually give you they give you +5 stat, and you get to pick though. You get to pick Dex, Strength, or Intelligence, which depending on your build. But if you make a mistake on those nodes, you just click on the stat node and you can pick a different stat. So I've done that when I need an extra 3-4 dexterity because I found a really cool pair of leather gloves that I don't normally wear leather on my warrior type character, but I wanted to wear them. I just change a few of the nodes to dex. Otherwise, there is respecking of the tree, and they've recently patched it to make it less costly in game of gold points, but it's still a bit of a commitment. So, like you mentioned, you can kind of cross the grid to do whatever you want. So, like, I love the flexibility of that, but you can kind of shoot yourself in the foot a little bit. And I did that with my witch, right? Because I'm just experimenting right now. It's early access. I don't care so much. So I'm taking skills from 3-4 different weapons just to see what they're doing. I'll try different branches of skills. Is it the best character for endgame? Probably not. But I can tell right now it's still a hell of a lot of fun to play. I still enjoy what I'm doing, and I haven't had an issue with bosses to this point, really. I'll die a couple times on a few, but I haven't felt like a roadblock in this game because of the choices I made. But I could see endgame, if you went the roundabout way to do certain things, I could see an unoptimized build that might cause you some trouble. But it's kind of like the rope to hang yourself, right? It's if you wanted the customization, it's there, but you
Right.
could do it not wrong, but maybe not the greatest way.
That's like you said, it's your decision to make, right? Like if you do that, then you've kind of shot yourself in the foot. The game doesn't do it for you because they make your build pretty in line, like pretty seamlessly in line that if you're like,
Yeah,
I'm just going to stick with this, I don't want to go too crazy just yet, you just go straight down or straight right or straight left or up or whatever, and it'll cover everything that you need to make that build just as powerful. But if you're like, you know what, I'm gonna start veering off way early, then you may pay the price on
yeah,
trying to make that customization. So um I think I'm only like level 17 and I'm not even halfway down like my line of stuff to pick up.
yeah,
So it takes a while. Like this is not a quick, hey, I'm just going to fill this thing up at level 50. Like there's a lot
yeah,
to do and
yeah.
it
Like
would
you're
take
how
you years to fill that whole goddamn thing up.
I don't think you ever fill that skill tree. I think it's meant to be expensive on purpose so that like much like Diablo, the recent Diablo games, there's seasons in PoE 1 and it's going to be the same in PoE 2 where if you want to play the same character, you absolutely could, but they really push the idea of we have time limited seasons where there's some new unique mechanic for the season. Like for example, in PoE 1, the one season, which I think is 4 months long, it was like a temple exploration mechanic where you dive into a temple. And there's different tiers of the temple that unlock things. Is really unique and not something I've seen in Diablo or similar. But every season has a unique mechanic, and the good mechanics, the fun ones that everybody likes, they kind of fold into the main game. Otherwise, they just try new things in these leagues. But the idea is when the league is over, your character goes to the general pool if you want to keep playing it, or you retire it and start a new character in a new league every couple months. So I don't mind that mechanic, but it's definitely a game that kind of pushes the idea of play your character and then know that you're going to beat the campaign, do a little end game, and then you're kind of like step away for a bit and then come back when something new is on the table. That's their kind of
Right.
core loop, right? Which like it's a games as a service type
And
of
I
thing.
like that.
Yeah,
No, that's
me
definitely a
too.
good concept. It
Yeah,
feels like that's kind of what Final Fantasy 14 was like for me, was
yeah,
like, okay, and I know they have all the expansions and all that other shit, but it felt like you could put it down and go do something else, and then if you came back 6 months later, you'd have a lot more stuff to do, but you
yeah,
never felt like I had to catch back up. It felt comfortable, and
yeah,
I feel like Path of Exile 2, at least this one, is gonna be laid out the same way, where I'm like, "Hey, you know what we haven't played in a bit? Let's fire up Path of Exile and play it."
yeah,
It's been an addiction, I'm not gonna lie. Like, most nights, I might get 30 to an hour, like, playtime in. I think I've got 10 overall hours, and we played for 4 hours last weekend together,
yeah,
but I'll go in and I'll play for, like you said, like 10 to an hour, 10 minutes to an hour,
yeah,
just to do some grinding and just run around, and then you don't feel like there's anything like, I have to do this. Like, it's not like your standard RPG where you're like, I want to beat this boss and then move on to the next thing. Or even a Soulsborne where you're like, let me fight this one thing and then I'll put it down. You can just kind of screw around with a little bit, run around in one area and be like, okay, I think I've had my fill. Then you turn it off and go do something else or go to sleep or whatever. Um, and you always feel pretty satisfied for the most part. It feels like so. I'm anxious to see what other builds play like. I think that's
Yeah.
my next thing is to fire up some new stuff.
Yeah, because like other games in this genre, like there's a zone boss for every zone for the most part, and some of those bosses are actually quite unique,
Boston are cool,
right?
and
Like
they're cool.
there's one in
Yeah.
that's in early midway through Act One. It's called the Crow Bell, and like
Yeah.
I was used to Diablo 3 and 4, where when you're fighting a boss, you're kind of in a small arena. But this son of a bitch, when you start attacking him, when
Jesus,
he
man.
gets a certain point, he runs, he leaves the
Yeah.
area.
He
And then
dips
the
out.
second area, he just rips the bell off the wall and starts swinging it at you, and then he runs again.
Yeah.
It's pretty dynamic. Or like the one particular boss, I'm not gonna say where, uh, summons wolves and like an icy fog to mess with you, and
Yeah.
just
Yep.
he's taunting you whenever the fog appears because he's leaping back and forth in the fog, and just the atmosphere is really good. There's some wild boss encounters. There's one I haven't got to myself yet. I saw the video. And when that thing kicks off, it kicks off with waves of dozens and dozens of enemies just filling the screen. And when you clear
That's
them, then you get
nuts.
the boss.
That's
It's
Vampire
rad.
Survivors type stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the atmosphere is really rad in this game. Like it's just like it's crazy. Like, and so far it runs on my Steam Deck well enough.
Yeah.
Ideally I would play it on a PC, or what I like to do, I like to stream the PC to my Steam Deck. But
That's what I
I've
do.
heard that Acts 2 and 3 get a little bit hectic for the Steam Deck, but we'll see. I'm not expecting much from the Steam Deck anyway, to be honest, performance wise.
Yeah.
But so far, it's been running pretty good. But it's a
Are
pretty
you
solid
playing it
game.
directly off the Steam Deck, or if you're are you streaming onto it, or did you download it directly to the Steam Deck?
Both. So when, because I have
Oh,
crappy Wi-Fi in my bedroom, so when I'm in bed, I'll just play it native on the Steam Deck, and it looks
yeah,
fine. I had to tweak it. I mean, that's the Steam Deck for you, right? I had to tweak it. I had to turn on
right.
DirectX 12, and I want to say it was the Intel graphics setting, which is weird, but it works great. I'm playing on the
Mhm.
OLED version. Battery life is about 2 hours, which is kind of at what I expect.
Standard. That seems
Yeah.
standard. Yeah.
But it also, when I'm upstairs, I have access to the good Wi-Fi. I stream from my gaming PC. It looks amazing for what it is. The spell
Yeah.
effects are great. The dozens and dozens of mobs. It's a pretty sweet looking game.
I do a direct Steam stream link from my PC because my bedroom is there and my office is here, so it's pretty close, and the internet's all up here. So it works. Like I said, when I first got it, I was having some issues with it loading, and it would like freeze on my screen, but it would continue to load through. But it seems like that has been fixed since I started having that issue. But it's fun to just lie in bed and play it. Like it's not.
Yeah.
There's not a lot. I mean, there's some brain power that is required to play it, of course, but it's not so much thought process that you're like, I got to really pay attention to what's really going on. So, um, it's
And
been
like
great. It's been a great blazer.
it's great. You do a zone, you do a boss, you log out, or you do a run of a boss a couple times because you can reset an instance to do boss runs like you used to do in Diablo
Yeah,
2, right? Bale runs, if anybody who's familiar, or Mephisto runs.
I remember
You can do
Baylor.
that too if you want, or you can sit and go through a whole campaign, like the whole act or the chapter. It's really rad, and there's always another way to build a different character with a different build, and I love it for that.
Right.
So it's an early access, but to play it in early access, it's $30 US. When the game is in full release, it'll be free, much like PoE 1. The way they make money at grinding your games, and it's good. It's important to call this out. There is an in-game transaction store, microtransactions, which is funny because this is something that Diablo 4 also launched with. And that my first reaction to Diablo 4 is the cost of costumes and whatnot was like, fuck you. So
Yeah, right.
PoE 2, there are some cosmetics like armor and whatnot in the game in the store that are like not cheap, right?
There's some cool looking
Yeah,
cosmetics.
there's some cool shit. Yeah, there is. And when you pay the $30 to gain early access, they give you basically $30 worth of in-game currency. So
Right.
the way I look at it, over 10 years of playing PoE 1, I spent probably $60 at most. I generally do that when it comes to these games as a service. I'll usually spend the cost of an actual game if I dig it enough, like Hearthstone, Warframe, around $60 over the years. So I don't mind it, and I have the in-game currency, and I think I use it for stash tabs. I think what is interesting, if you are a vet of the first game, not everything, but anything that applies in PoE 2, so stash tabs, certain spell cosmetics, if you bought it in PoE 1, it is unlocked in PoE 2. It's the same thing. They really did try to keep the two games together at one point, and they're trying to honor that. So That's what they're trying to do. So we'll see. But nothing is required. Nothing in the game transaction store is needed. I know some people on Reddit complain about the stash tabs, which to explain that more, your account has in town a shared stash for all your characters, and I think you get, how many stash tabs do you start with? Because I bought some in PoE1. Is it 2?
I don't have an answer for you. I don't know enough about what a stash tab was to give you an answer for that.
So the thing is, you might get like 1 or 2, and it's sizable. But where people get upset and they say, well, stash tabs are required in PoEs because there's a lot of currency, a lot of skill gems you may not need right away. You might find items you can't equip yet, so you want to put them as storage for later. And some people are, let's say it, are hoarders, and they want to hold everything. And you can't without buying stash tabs. So that's kind of locked in the microtransaction store. But they're like $1 each. So for a game that is free otherwise, and you'll probably come back to again and again over the years, I don't mind paying, $5 here for a couple tabs. So there is that one thing that is not cosmetic, but everything else, spell effects, cursors, all that kind of stuff is in the store. But there's also really cool stuff in this game. Forget the store, just in the game. One of the complaints I had about PoE1, the story in that one is basically you are literally in exile to what you thought was a deserted island, but there's people there that are surviving that are all exiles. So they've all kind of like made this scavenger economy, I guess. There's no gold in the first game, and all the items look like you basically took tin cans and pots and pans and broken glass bottles to make armor, and you looked awful. I think even late game, a lot of the stuff in PoE1, you looked like you're homeless. Like it was an awful looking run. PoE2, the story is 20 years after the first game. It's completely different plot line and whatnot, and you look cool right from the get go. Every armor I've picked up, I could at least say, oh, that's cool looking. I don't feel like that turtle from Moana or something like that. I don't feel like I've scavenged my armor in bits and bobs. I actually feel like it's legit crafted armor and it looks good.
Right.
So there's that at least.
Characters look neat. Yeah, I've got some 1 or 2 rare pieces of armor that are like my fucking boots though. Jesus Christ, with the fucking fairies on the toes.
Was that what you were saying? Okay.
Yeah, I sent you a picture of them. I was like, what? Look at these sandals. Look at these Crocs. What is this?
there's the one armor. It's good armor, but it's like this glowy green scarf around you. That kind of looks weird, but it's a good armor.
Yeah, that's the ghost armor. That was the first drop I got and was like, did I break the game? Because this thing is dope. Like I am tanking everything right now. And then I ran into my first boss and it went, no, son, you're not breaking.
Yeah, when you get if you get the right unique item, the orange item that hits with your character, meshes with your character, it can take you very far. Like it's not a loot based game, so it's not like you're shuffling out items every single level like I might in the other game, in Diablo or Diablo 3-4. If you get an item at 10 that's legendary, you might have it up to your 30s. Like it could be that good for your build because of some of the values they have on there. It's a lot of increase armor by X%, which is just good no matter what level it is. So there's a lot of that. But yeah, it's an awesome game. So like when people keep saying, oh, it's early access, I don't want to play it yet. It's $30. I could play it for free when it's also done. How do you feel about the cost of this game in terms of the value of what you can play now?
I would expect a game like this to easily be $30. Like completed, yes, of course. I mean, it's obviously still got some stuff to do with that, but the fact that this thing is going to be free in 6 to 8 months to a year is mind-boggling. But everybody knows Jake and I and our FOMO fear. We did a whole episode about it. But I mean, I was lucky enough that this was given to me by my really good friend Lord Optic. So I normally probably wouldn't have had any interest in trying this out, except for Jake constantly MPing us that this is possibly game of the year, like he
game
does
of the year.
But this has really been fun, and it was fun playing by myself. But I'll tell you what, Sunday when it was you, Bridget, Optic, and myself playing together, that was like what I miss about playing these types of games, was doing that kind of stuff. I had forgotten how much fun that is. I want to point out, and I'm going to shout her out on the podcast. Bridget is a level 46 blood mage right now, and she just got the game last Saturday.
I told you when I saw her on Steam and she was level 10 in the first half of the day. I'm like, fuck, she's gonna be like max level before we even play.
She is. She's killing it, and she's clearly having a great time with it, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's this game is addictive. It's fun. It's fun to
Yeah.
jump into. I'm going down to visit my folks and family this holiday season next week, and I'm taking the Steam Deck with me. And I'm glad that you told me that it ran on there because I'm gonna have some. There's gonna be some itchy neck moments if I can't jump on for a little bit and run an instance or two because I don't want to come back and not be able to play with you guys.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, look, chart's only level 17. The rest of us are 40 to 50. I guess we'll go back down and show him how to get through this stuff. And I'm like, guys, I just
No,
want to play.
there's always another character to play though, and that's what makes this interesting. And I'll say from early access, yes, there's no daggers or swords, sure, but they're coming. For now, play maces, quarterstaffs. There's 6 classes to play as. By the time it comes out fully, there'll be another 6 classes to play as. And again, it's a game. If they do anything like they do with PoE 1, which I'm sure they're going to, this is a game that you come back to at least once a year and look at all the cool shit they've added. That's just what they do, and I have nothing but respect for that. It's awesome. It's like every time I uninstall No Man's Sky, Hello Games releases another goddamn update with something cool I have to reinstall and check it out. And that's what
Right.
this game is. And it's neat to see a game release in basically beta, I guess, although it's a very polished one. And then to look back
Exception.
5 years from now and saying, yes, I tried it when it was brand new, and now look at it now.
Yeah.
And that's always cool to me. I rave
Yeah,
about Warframe all the
it's
time.
worth it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I rave about Warframe all the time, and I played that in the first year or two when it first came out. God damn, that game was trash when it first came out, and it was a totally different game than it is today in 2024. Let me tell you, like Warframe today is great. Back then, it was a different thing. It was almost a different game. So, but it's
Right.
neat to see that progress over the years, and I feel like that's what it's for me is what PoE2 is. It's like yes, $30, but I was gonna buy stash tabs anyway, so I get the money with the in-game currency with that. And to see the game
Right.
now versus what it'll be like in the future, I think is a really cool experience.
Agreed. And I don't feel like I mean, a lot of the cosmetics and stuff that you get aren't like game breaking. Like you don't. It's not a pay to win.
Yeah,
It's just a pay to quality of life a little bit. But even so, if you're like, I really want to try this, but I don't want to drop $30 on it, wait 6 months. Wait 6 months or a year and get it for free
yeah,
and play it. And it's going to be more polished than it is now. But like Jake said, this thing is pretty damn polished. Like the fact that anybody would tell me that this game isn't done yet, I would scoff at you because this
yeah.
game appears very complete, very well put together, and it plays really great. There's been no glitches, no stuttering. Like I said, when I first started, I was playing on the Steam Deck, but streaming from the Steam client to the Steam Deck in my room, there's going to be hiccups. I'm not going to blame the game for that because I don't know how many times I've ran into issues streamlining something from there to there. So, um, playing it on the PC, not a single problem.
Yeah.
We got on together as a group. We played together with 0 drops, 0 hiccups, 0 issues, and it played smoothly. There was no point where we were like, "What is going on? Like, what is happening?" They've done a fantastic job at this release.
Like I had one bug where in the treetop village area, my monk skill, if I got crowd control by a certain enemy, my monk skill wouldn't work until I unequipped and re-equipped it again. That's the only
Huh,
weird bug I've found in the game, and they fixed it the recent patch that just came out. So that's the joys of an early access game. You're gonna have bugs, but shockingly few bugs for what I've played so far. It's
yeah,
wild. So definitely
yeah,
a polished game. And if you're like me, look, I ultimately came around in Diablo 4. I do dig Diablo 4, but knowing that their business model at Blizzard is going to be $30-$40 for each expansion, we're going to release an expansion every year and a half or so. PoE 2 is doing like a lot for free. A lot.
right,
And like as much as I don't mind, I like Diablo 4 skill tree. I like the themes and lore. The D4 story just didn't do anything for me whatsoever. Like I have fond memories of Diablo 2 story in the cinematics. Diablo 3 story was pretty good too. D4 kind of lost me. And so if it's a matter of the story doesn't matter to me in D4 and the story doesn't really matter to me in Path of Exile 2, the gameplay is just better in PoE 2 and it's not going to cost me anything. So I think that's just the
right.
factor for me. And like yeah, like you said, there's more here than I feel like was in other action RPGs over the years. Like when I look at V Rising, which is not a bad game, I think there's more here. Titan's Quest. I know Titan's Quest had a number of expansions, but I never
Yeah,
felt any of them really had a hold on me like Path of Exile 2
right.
does.
Same,
So
same.
yeah,
I played it as like a filler, but it just felt like a filler. It didn't feel like
yeah,
this is the new hotness. It just felt like this is something to bridge the gap until something better comes along, and unfortunately, it took until 2024 for something better to come along to grab me and pull me back in. So
Yeah.
it's almost to the point of where I've been thinking about like Grim Dawn and stuff. Like, did I really give that a good chance? Like, should I go
Yeah.
back and play
Same.
some other of these games?
Yeah.
So, and that's Jake and me trying to fight off our inability to not spend money on shit we don't need to.
We
But
try.
it's
Never works.
yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's this is a great listen. If you got $30 to drop on this thing, absolutely do it. It's totally worth it. And my thought process is you're paying the company to continue to make this thing good.
Yes.
They're giving us something for free. If you're dropping $30, you drop 60, but I dropped $60 on Silent Hill 2 without blinking an eye. This is half of that, and it's going to last longer than Silent Hill 2 will overall.
Yeah.
I may not get the same, sense of awe as I did with Silent Hill 2, but there's a beginning into it and an end to that. This, though it may have a beginning and end story-wise, you just go back and play something different. You play a different character, you do a different path. There's going to be seasons, like Jake said, where you are going to be chasing some kind of brass ring of some kind
Yeah.
that is interesting every 4 to 6 months. And, if they just keep on tacking onto this thing for free, give them $30.
Yeah.
Let them help
Especially
them out.
once. So
Yeah.
like I know as we're recording this one for today, Blizzard just announced during the holidays you can play Diablo 4's main campaign for free. So you can tell that Blizzard is like they saw the half million, they're
Mm,
500 million, no, 500,000 people playing PoE 2 over the last week, I think is what I saw on Steam, which is wildly high. That's double, well, more than double what PoE 1 had. So go play Diablo 4 for free for the Xmas week. Go play it, and then go pick up
yeah,
Path of Exile 2, and you tell me that D4 is better than this game. Like even in early access, there's no way. I think PoE 2 is just after that crown that Blizzard has had. I feel like Blizzard has kind of not done what they should have done with that Diablo license over the years. I feel like they really dropped the ball, right? From that mobile game to whatever the hell D4 was. I mean, it's night and day.
right.
So anyway,
Well, didn't
great
you say
game. Yeah.
there was a big bump in PoE 1 after PoE 2 was released? Didn't you say
Yeah.
they
So
jumped up quite a bit too?
it's tough to get numbers on like so PoE 1 launched off of Steam as a standalone thing, and they added it to Steam a few years ago. But yeah, the peak players was 100,000. I think it was earlier this year, and the PoE 2 launched with Steam, and it's in the I think the peak was like I have to look this up. I thought it was 500,000. I could be wrong, but it was high. When we look at
Mhm.
Diablo 4, to be fair, Diablo 4 did not launch on Steam. They only recently came onto Steam, but the Steam numbers are low. I think I saw an article that mentioned that there was 3 million in sales for Diablo 4. So still a bigger game than Path of Exile, but that was always the case, right? Diablo's always been bigger
Right.
than Path of Exile
It's
in raw
Diablo.
numbers.
It's hard
But
to
yeah, and it's Blizzard, right?
yeah,
But when you look at the gameplay itself, I feel like the hardcore players are all going on Path of Exile. It's just a
right,
better game, and again, free. So I think
right,
it's well worth $30. But if you don't want to pay $30, I totally get you, especially this time of the year.
right.
But you got to check this game out when it comes out. It's such a
Yeah,
must play to me. Like
just
honestly,
wait.
game of the year next year, it's going to be hard for me next year. This is definitely going to
Yeah,
be up
there's
there
gonna be a
for
lot.
me. Yeah.
We got to finish this before February. You know that, right?
I want to see the end game.
And whatever
I
Sisyphean games we end up deciding to play, we got to finish those for February too,
there's a whole lot
because
of games to play next
Monster Hunter
year.
Wilds is going to take all of our time away.
It's at least 200
Uh,
hours right there. Yeah.
easily.
All right. Any last words on Path of Exile 2?
This is like we've been gushing about this game, and it's deservedly so. This is not something that you would normally see me even pick up or even talk about at any point. Um, like I said, ARPGs are just not usually they haven't been my thing for many, many years. Um, and for something to reel me in where I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give this a try. And now I'm like, we need to finish this up so I can go play it. Like I didn't think it was going to be like that at all. So coming from someone with literally zero interest in Path of Exile, now being gripped by its bony claws, that's got to tell you something. So I would recommend this to pretty much anybody. Like Jake said, drop the $30, get it now, or just wait and play it when it's polished and further in for free because it's worth it. It's totally
Yeah.
worth it with the wait or the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a must play. I have to. I think that's an episode, Chard. Do you want
I
to tell
agree.
people where they can find you?
Not anywhere for a while because I'm going to be on vacation for Christmas. So I'll be
Okay.
spending some time with the family. So I'll be a little bit away, but you'll catch me on most of our social networking stuff. I'll be hanging out on our Discord, popping in. You'll see me hanging out with friends on Twitch and chatting with these other three wonderful people that aren't here with us today, but we'll definitely talk about it. And you'll see us on the podcast again here real soon. So it's going to be a
Yeah.
quiet week. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody who celebrates any of those. And you'll see us later.
Yeah. Oh, wow. No, yeah, how can I compete with that one? I am Sick Jake. You can mostly find me over on Blue Sky because screw Twitter, and also Sick Jake over on YouTube. Check me out there. I have something planned for there in the new year. Otherwise, you can check us out here at Press B to Cancel podcast. We're Press B to Cancel on YouTube, as well over on Blue Sky and even on Twitter for the podcast still. We're also a member of Superpod Network. Check out the superpodnetwork.com for a whole bunch of other gaming related shows. Some are retro more than we are lately, and some are also more modern games as well. A lot of great stuff there. But otherwise, yes, we are Press B to Cancel. Thanks for listening, and